Okay, so in the last video I put on the second doubler. I epoxied that on the last video I made, and now I'm done with this portion of the fuselage. So since the last video, I sanded all this down, I dremeled that down, filled that in with some wood filler there because I messed up a little bit. Then I rounded off all these edges. And the important thing to remember with this part is you can't replace poor craftsmanship with paint. It can't be done. It's not supposed to be done. You're supposed to do this well, and your plane will come out looking good. But if you gouge it, which I've done myself on different planes, and just nick it up, you're not going to be able to fix that with paint. You're going to need to go over that with some Hobbyco light filler. That's what I did up here and here, and I did a pretty good job there. And if that you think something doesn't look right, and like there you still see a little bit of epoxy that looks like it's a bump, you want that to be flush. You might still see it, like you do on this. You're still going to see it. And by this point, you're going to want to pick it up right like that by the front of the doubler, lightly. Just hold it with the tips of your fingers, and it should be level. Like, see, if I hold it back here, it goes way front. If I hold it back here, it goes way back. But, no, if you hold it right here, it should stay level for the most part. That's how you're going to want it to be. By this point, you should already have sanded, done all that stuff. And now you're ready to put this off to the side because you're going to do the stabilizer, elevator, rudder, fin, all at the end. So, for now, I'll put this off into the box. So, the next step would be to start with the wing. And the first step in the wing is, I am recording this, right? Yeah. The first step in the wing is to pin down the trailing edge right up here. However, I would suggest before you do that, you get a piece of drywall bigger than the plans, put that down on your workbench. That does not need to be secured in any way. Its weight should hold it just fine. Then it only has to be slightly bigger than the plans. This piece I just had lying around, and I didn't want to cut it because I never know if I'm going to have bigger plans at one point or another. So I left it to probably 6 feet long, maybe a little less, and 4 feet deep. And now, I have to think now. Yeah, so put down the plans. Then on top of that, put down some wax paper. Doesn't need to be expensive. You can buy it at the dollar store. It'll do the same thing as the $15 stuff you buy at Stop and Shop. Just buy it at the dollar store. It's half the price. Less than half the price. It's $1. So then you want to staple that down with your staple gun. And then now it's time to get started. Left my T-pins in the back here, and I personally put them all into a piece of cardboard so they're easy to grab for. Now, the first step, and you shouldn't let your bench get this messy, by the way, is to get out the trailing edge. It might take you a minute to find it. That's not it. Oh, and I almost forgot. On your fuselage, before you put on the second doubler, if you're going to be using the standard landing gear that came with it, the standard bent wire landing gear, I can get a piece of it out for you to show you what I mean. Standard bent wire landing gear that goes on like this. You're gonna wanna put a hardwood dowel in there, 1/2 inch, maybe a little smaller, if you have to, you just want to make sure it's not showing up in there, so when you drill the hole, start with something small, maybe 1/8, and go up gradually. You're going to want it to be about 1/2 inch or the next size down. Or another option would be drill a bigger hole, put in a piece of brass tubing, but I'm not going to do that because I don't plan on using the bent wire landing gear. I plan on getting some aluminum stuff, some aluminum landing gear like this, because with this it doesn't bend, doesn't bow at all. The good thing about aluminum, it flexes, it goes right back into shape. It's not going, they do scratch a little bit, but nobody notices that. Yeah, you're going to definitely want to do that if you can, because you're not going to break as many props. You're going to end up saving money in the long run, because these bent wire landing gear, they bow out on occasion. You come down for enough landings, they'll start to bow, they'll start to bend. Aluminum landing gear don't do that, they don't permanently bend. But enough talking about the fuselage. I think I already put that away. I can't exactly tell if this is the trailing edge or not. It very well could be. 1/16 by 1. This tends to be more accurate than a tape measure. It measures 1/16 on one side. This is a combination square, by the way. Yes, this is definitely, those two are definitely the trailing edge is. So, I want to put these sheets back away so that nothing gets broken. And I'm going to want to pin these down to my plans. I'm going to want to make sure that I'm not pinning in the place of any ribs. And actually, before you do that, you're going to want to mark the length and cut that. I would definitely recommend cutting it a little long. Actually, no, this back when you splice, you do not want this to be long. Now I just have to lift my square. Because you're going to want to cut this on a 45-degree angle. So yeah, then you want to do the same thing, mark this other piece. Actually, I marked this one wrong because I didn't see the line at first. I marked it the wrong line, so I'm going to go back and mark it to the right. Then I'm going to mark this. Mark this to the same length. Then I want to match up those two marks. Put them down on my table like this. With the marks matched up, get my square here. Mark that edge up with the line. Mark that like that. Then I'm just looking for my X-Acto knife. And I know it's around here somewhere. This is where I last used it. Well, yeah, it don't look like I'm finding that anytime soon. I have a utility knife over here, too, so I can never lose them because they're a lot bigger. And hold that down with one hand. Keep your fingers away from the blade. And because that's pretty hard to steady, I'm gonna grab one of these clamps, the ones I've told you not to use in the past. But for this use, it is okay. You just can't use it for everything. It will crush the wood if the square is not under it. Oh, I cut one there. There, I cut them both. Now, I'm gonna want this one over here. And this one here. And the reason I cut them on top of each other is because I want to make sure that they're gonna match up perfectly. Because if one's a little off, it's just not gonna be right. It's not going to glue right, and you can't fix that. Once it's cut, you can't make it longer again to redo it. I know most of you probably get what I'm saying by this point. And see, even though the splice is a little off what it recommends, I don't know exactly what angle it recommends. It's upside down. Trying to figure this one out now. Oh yeah, just the angle is a little off, but these two will still meet up correctly. And it is all fine and dandy. Now I do want to double check length. That one's good. You want to match it up to the top edge, not the bottom edge. This one is also good. So now I'm gonna get my T-pins. I'll pin this side first because that's just my personal preference. And there's not going to be an immense amount of pressure trying to move this. So 3 T-pins should definitely be good. Sometimes they're a little hard to get into the drywall, but it's better than trying to get it into a piece of solid plywood. You can even hear the difference with that. And again, these should not be where any of the ribs are. That's going to end up causing you a problem in the end. I know there's some companies that sell the tools to put these in and out of harder materials. These T-pins personally, I just like to do it with my fingers. And I position this just a little off, which it doesn't really matter now, but it will when we get further into the build. And because I'm working over here, you guys can't see anything, can you? So. I just have to reconfigure my camera here a little bit. Okay, you can see it now. Yeah, and as I said before, here you're only really gonna need 3 T-pins on each piece, because unless somebody's gonna be here really trying to move them, they'll pretty much keep in place on their own. I haven't been holding this tight to the paper. Let my mistake be a lesson to you. Okay, so I know how I would do this next, but I'm gonna see how Sig recommends it. Okay, they recommend I set the ribs into place next. Okay. These are the sheets of ribs. Now I have to reposition my camera back over here while I look at the ribs. Okay, so the ribs say something. Either say R2 or R1, I believe. Yes, 1 and 2. Don't know how they decided R, but I'm sure other pieces are named other letters. A lot more R2 than R1, because R1, I believe, is just the 4 middle ribs. The ones that get covered by balsa sheeting. It appears that there's still a sheet in here. There's 2 R1s there. And here's the other 2 R1s. So, I'm gonna take these out of the wood casing now. The Sig ones tend to come out pretty easy. The Brodak ones are a real pain to get out without breaking. I'll move them in a minute. Oh, yeah, that would have stunk. Okay, and you see there's these little poke outs in here. You just poke them right out. If I'm correct, these are all hand cut. That's why some of them will be easier to take out than others. Sig does all their stuff like this in an older fashioned style. That's why with these ones, you'll see that they have a handwritten number on them, whereas with the ones that fill up most of that occupy most of the ribs, they're just going to be stamped on there. Like this. So some, they practically fall out. The some I really have to struggle to get out. And these, if I ever have to temporarily prop something up, like motor mounts or such, to see how much of if I'm gonna need a bigger motor mount or something, that's the only reason I keep those. Not really important on this, first of all, because I already have the motor mounts done, and second, because you can't see it now, but they extend back to like here. Whereas with, like, I think the shoestring, the magician, the ringmaster, actually I have a ringmaster with the doublers peeled off right here, to show you what I'm talking about. Right there, you see how they just go back to the back of the opening. Ringmasters were meant to be good, solid light planes. Okay. Okay, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here. Was I supposed to pin the spar down yet? Usually we pin the spar down first. That explains it. I was a little confused there. I didn't know how they expected me to do this until that the rest of the trailing edge was this thin. I'm not sure how they expect me to do this. So instead of building it how they tell me to build it, I'm going to build this how it should be done. I'm going to take off this part of the trailing edge. I know I've wasted a lot of your time doing this. I deeply apologize about that. But I'm going to take these off and put them back in the box. Now, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to get the spar out of here first. The spar needs to go on before anything else. The bottom half of the spar. Then you put the ribs in, wait for that to dry, and do the bottom half of the spar. I'm hoping these are already cut to length, because I don't really feel like cutting them, but that would just be too easy, wouldn't it? Of course it would. These are either the wrong things. No, these are the right things. So, I do want to make sure they fit well in the notches. They do. So what I'm going to do for added support on this, quarter-inch square, I might have an alternative. No, I don't. I was hoping I had a solid piece that I wouldn't need to have a two-piece spar. But I'm going to. So one of these I'm going to leave at full length, and it's going to be this one. So I keep the build stronger. I know most people recommend just following the plans for everything. But at a certain point, you have to just use common sense. That's all I can tell you. And if they have it so everything meets right in the middle, like the plans were for my Excalibur over there, yeah, that's not gonna work. It's gonna be way too weak. I know that supposedly was a really good guy who designed that one, but apparently not. So I'm gonna finish pinning this down. I know you guys can't see this right now, but you'll just have to trust that it's being pinned down properly. Just make sure it's directly over the place on the plans. If it's a little off, it's okay, but just make sure the whole thing is a little off the same way. So now I am going to want you to be able to see that. So I'm going to take my pencil, make sure it's lined up on this side, which it is. You want to make sure it goes to the very end of the rib. Then mark this. Back here. Now you guys need to be able to see this. And I know usually you do this with a X-Acto knife, but I think, in my experience, it's been better to do it with a coping saw. So if you want a coping saw, what you should, if that you're a control liner, I would definitely recommend using it for this. Now I'm going to put the strap off to the side again. If I have to mix any more epoxy, which I will for the bell crank, that should be the next time though, I will want that as a mixing stick if I don't have. Like this, you can tell it's all covered with epoxy. Probably can't use that one again, because I have to break off the piece every time, and all that fun stuff. So now, see, this is, I pin this down probably. Actually, I'm going to want to put a dab of glue in here. I'm going to use Sigment. That's what Sig recommends I use for this build. I've noticed it's a very strong glue. And I'm not only saying smelling, it actually does hold very strong. For every build I've done so far, I've used Sigment. Even the ones that aren't Sig, which this is actually my first Sig build. I have some Brodak planes. I did a Brodak ARF, but that's not the same. So yeah, this would be the first build I've done that was made by Sig. Bought from Sig, and being built in my basement. Sounds kind of sad that I spent half my time in my basement. But I assure you I'm not a creep. Which made me sound like a creep. In case you were wondering, this drywall is pretty thick. A lot thicker than it needs to be. Again, this is just what I had lying around. It's nothing particularly special. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and I'm going to, actually before I do that, I'm going to want you over here again. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you can see that. Those are ribs. Those are sheep balsa ribs. That's tip ribs. Ribs. Okay, so each of these has 3, so 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 2, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I think they gave me an extra rib with this one piece. 8, wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yes, they did give me an extra rib with this. This one only has 2. Nope, I do have an extra rib now. But that's good because I can make a template out of it because I'm sure I will have to do a repair eventually. Now I assure you, the next video won't be this lengthy, because I'm not going to do it the way it says anymore. I'm going to do it how it should be done, how I've done previous builds. And the proper way to do it is to put the spar in, and then do the ribs, then do the trailing edge. Because as you can see with this, the trailing edge, it just goes 2 pieces of sheep balsa, like that. And I might end up cutting the ribs and just doing a solid buying a solid trailing edge from my local hobby shop, which is Hanson Hobby, if anyone was wondering. They've been there since mid to late 70s. My dad went there when he was a kid. They have just about anything you'll need. They even have a few kits sitting in there, but once again, I would recommend just ordering them right from the distributor, which in this case would be Sig, or Brodak, or Midwest, whoever. Oh, in case any of you were wondering, the magician I keep referring to was a Brodak, which I do regret. I wish I had bought a Midwest, or a different Brodak kit, because the ribs in it are just so fragile. I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I ever go to do a repair on it, fix anything on it. I must have broke the ribs 100 times putting them in, different ribs. And it has a ton of ribs, so it should not be that fragile. So I don't think it will be, but if it breaks, it will be a real pain. And like this rib, you can see it was starting to split a second ago. Yeah, it is. So, gonna get some CA glue. Put that there because I don't want to be flying the plane when it breaks. It's gonna be a real pain if that happens. That's my dog barking. Not like he's gonna do anything if it was an intruder. He's a Shih Tzu. Okay, so you see I glued that. And these ribs, I can't believe how easy these are coming out. That's one of the reasons, I don't want that over there. That's one of the reasons I broke so many on my Brodak Magician. But these seem to be popping right out, no problem. I noticed that the bottom spar, or top spar depending on how you build it, is a little stiff. And some of these I might have to go with a knife to get them up the rest of the way. But other than that, they seem to be coming up pretty nicely. Of all the planes I've built, I don't think I've had any ribs poke out this nicely. And I've built quite a few. I've built a Ringmaster ARF, a Ringmaster Kit, a Brodak Magician, and like, I'm in the middle of an Excalibur over there, but that's a scratch build, and I don't have the fuselage made yet. That's why I took a break from that while I do this, because this one I can do in about half the time, get ready to fly a lot faster. Yeah, but the Mongoose 2s, they're a pain to build. They're some of the hardest builds I've ever done. And they're such simple planes, too. In a minute, I can take one out and show you. After I finish poking out all these ribs. Yeah, if you can have your hands on a Mongoose 2, do it. I have a few kits, but I ain't selling those. They're a pain to build, but you get a lot of practice building them. You're gonna know what you're doing. How to build planes. They're very good to start building. They're simple, but there's just so much sanding involved. It's a good teacher of patience. This is an older one. This is not what I'm gonna dig up. There's just so much fabrication done with them. This one doesn't have wingtips on it yet, but it gives you the gist. This started out all squared off, like actually more of a hexagonal shape. But yeah, you can see I cut this off down here. Haven't put that on yet. Yeah, you can see these are just so tedious to build. You have to cut so many parts for them. Yeah. You have to notch the leading and trailing edge, which is a lost skill. Not many people have it. Okay, so you've seen me poke all those out. Now, wow, this is getting to be a lengthy video. But I'm just gonna put these on and then stop for the time being. Maybe come back down here tomorrow morning and make another video, but so again, for this I'm going to use Segment. That's not only what Sig recommends, but that is what I would recommend. And when it comes to control lining, I tend to know a lot more than Sig. They have focused more in the past 20 or so years even. They've focused more and more in RC and less in control line. They only have like 2, 3, no, I'm thinking now. I think they have 4 full-scale control line models. But they have like 50 RC models. And don't even get me started on their distributor. Doesn't have any control line models. And has like well over 100, no, not their distributor, their someone they distribute for. Has over 100 RC models and not a single control line model. So the good thing about Segment is it dries fairly slow. So you're not gonna be in a big rush putting this on these ribs. which is one thing I personally like, because I like to take my time and get it right, square, straight, and not in a month come across it and falling apart after 2 or 3 flights. Hopefully in a month it gets more than that, but depends on how many planes I have built at the time. If I have 10 planes built, I'm not going to take this out every weekend. I don't know why this one doesn't want to stay square. I'm going to put something at a sharper angle. This one. And this one is one of the most important ones to get perfect. If the one rib that you get perfect in it, or if there's 2 ribs rather that you get perfect in it, it should be the first and last. Anything else, if you mess it up, I mean, not good, but not the end of the world. Well, I mean, it's not the end of the world with these either, but you get what I'm saying. And maybe because I'm right-handed, it's going to be easier for me to put the T-pins in from the opposite side that I did on that one. Take the T-pin, put that over there. You're going to want to make sure you have these faced all the same way. I know that doesn't seem like an important thing, but it really is. And also, to get these perfectly straight, I've found it's easier if you're righty, close your right eye, close your left eye, and just look to your right. If you're lefty, do the opposite. Close your right eye, and just look to your left. And use that hand to mainly straighten it. Okay, I'm going to reposition the camera after I get the next one in. This video is probably going to go to be like an hour, so this is going to take me quite a time to load onto, not Facebook, onto YouTube. So you're welcome. That I'm taking time out of my day to load these videos on so that you can all learn from my mistakes. And it looks like the stamp on this one is upside down, which I was not expecting. Okay. 3 ribs done. 11 more to go. Can you straight to the center ribs with this? No. You can see that one. Okay. Yeah, that's the one I'll stop at and reposition the camera. See, this glue dries so slow, I would even say put this on 2 or 3, or depending on the speed you go at, up to 4 ribs ahead of yourself. This stuff will take approximate 70 degrees, good average temperature. Normal humidity, I would say 1.5 hours to 2 hours to set up, and then probably overnight to completely dry. That's what I would recommend, is wait overnight to let it dry. I go at a fairly good speed once I get going, so that's why I feel comfortable that I can go 4 ribs ahead of myself with glue. But if this were CA glue, or a glue I did not know very well, I would recommend doing 1 until you get to know the glue a little bit. And also, what I'm going to want to do is get a spacer to go back here, so I can keep the ribs at all the same height. The 2x4 is going to be too high. I'm trying to find a piece of 1/2 inch balsa. This is going to be way too small, way too short, yeah. Luckily, I bought some wood for the fuselage I can use for the time being. Okay, now I'm going to have to go back and make sure all these are still perfectly straight. I wish I had thought to do that at the very beginning. It would have been much easier. I wouldn't have had to go back and check every bit I've done so far. And after I'm done, I'll put a 2x4 or something on top of that to hold it down. Because I've had ribs float up, I've had them float down. All depends on how the spar notch was cut. because just in general, people make mistakes. I do. I'm sure all of you do. So even if it's being cut off a laser cutter computer, computers were designed by men, by people in general. I'm not trying to sound sexist. They were designed by people, and they just they mess up sometimes too. Nowadays, not as more as they did 50 years ago, but I could go on the internet right now and find something incorrect. And that is something I would bet on. I would also bet that somehow these two ribs got glued together in shipping or something. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry that took me so long. But like you see how slow this glue dries. I probably could have gone right down the line at the beginning and put glue on them all. Personally, I don't like doing that, but I could have. Okay, that one's perfect. Which, by the way, these are not cut with the laser cut computer. If they were, you'd be able to tell all this would be brown or black. I don't have an example around here, but if you've ever built a Brodat kit, you know what I'm talking about. The point is that it's kind of cut with a laser. Lasers are quite hot. They tend to burn some. In fact, everything they cut. That is kind of the purpose of a laser cutter. Whereas these, I believe, are... Except for all these are two ribs. I believe that they are cut with a patent. And that's essentially a big stamp. Okay, I just want to make sure that you can see. By the way, in case you thought I was weird, I look in the camera while I do that to make sure that you can see. I'm not just trying to see if my fingers can touch it. I know they can. It's not like there's some force field around that. Oh man, and here you have a piece of balsa wood when I get there anyway, not the half-inch piece. I would also suggest that you cap the glue when you're not using it, because it does start to stink quite fast. That's an R1 rib. I'm going to go back and do those at the end, after all the R2 ribs are into place. Because those, again, they're something I try to get more perfect than all the R2. But I get the R2 pretty sneaking close to perfect. And this video is up to 55 minutes. Wow, I have been in my basement a long time. And you not only have to make sure that they're straight front to back, but also side to side. Or no, not side to side, yeah. Well, yes, they have to be straight side to side, but they also have to be straight this way. You don't want your rib to be like this, or like this, and most certainly not like this. You want it to be perfectly straight, which I cannot hold it perfectly straight. But that is probably the most important of the straightnesses. You know, sometimes you just have that one rib you can't get perfectly straight. It takes you a few minutes to get it. Yeah, for me, that's this rib. You sometimes wonder if it's the cut and it's off. Okay. And I need to get another piece of wood to jack that up with. Yeah, this one's from my local hobby shop, Hanson Hobby. But like this other one I got this from a place that I go up to mainly for balsa wood. That's pretty much the reason I go there. I also got some CA glue there and some sanding sealer there. But that's just because I happened to be there and I knew I needed those things. Oh, knocked my combination square over. Reposition my camera now. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, I'm pretty new at this. And I'm videotaping myself doing this. Usually I just do it, don't narrate any of it, because I'm not a weirdo. I only narrate it when I know there's some YouTube viewers who want to view it. Oh, we reached an hour. 48 seconds ago we reached an hour, so pretty close that I noticed. This is going to take up so much space on my phone. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not, but these pieces that I'm using to hold up the back of the ribs, they're 1/2 inch. I'm not quite sure if that's the right size to use or not, but I'm surely gonna find out. Okay. I'll see after I finish this build, see how this comes out. Usually I just put something from the kit under it, because usually the kit tells me how high off the ground, how high off the bench it's supposed to be. But this does not. Most even give you the strips or something to put under it. I was very surprised when this one didn't. But maybe that's just not how SIG does it. SIG does not roll that way. Okay, only 2 more R2 ribs to go. Then I will get started on the R1, and those should not take very long because there's only 4 of them. I expect this video to go to about an hour and 15 minutes. The closer we get to the end, the more exact I'll be able to tell you. In fact, when the video is over, I can tell you the exact second. Something tells me you guys don't like my humor. Sounds like somebody's coming down here.
Oh.
Hi.
Hey, pal.
Hi.
Is that the new plane?
This is the banshee, yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm taking trash out.
Okay.
You got wax paper under it, right?
Yes, I do.
Good job.
Yeah, that's my dad. He's seen me ruin planes. He's seen me ruin planes before. And it looks like this one should be coming out a lot better than some of my first builds. Like, my first Brodak build was horrible. My first Brodak build, by the way, was a Magician. My first build was a Mongoose 2. And the Mongoose 2, you saw that one. That was my second build. The one that I showed you a second ago. And I don't know if the one I built first is even here. It was all prepped for paint. I might not have brought it back here because I didn't want to add anything on it. I might have left it in the place I painted it. Yeah, that's what I did with it. Okay, but we have all the W2 ribs into place. And now, I'm going to put the W1 ribs into place. You'll have to excuse me for a second. I heard noise. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. What are you doing out there?
Letting the snow.
Oh, okay.
Why's your charger going on the floor? You don't like it? You want to ruin it?
I don't know. It just ended up there.
Where'd this come from?
Where did what come from? A piece of plywood, drywall over there.
Was it cut?
Yeah.
That's a big trailing edge.
This is not the trailing edge. Ha ha ha.
Okay.
You know I'm recording everything you say right now,
That's
right? Okay.
Goodbye.
I just want to make sure you know. These seem to be perfectly symmetrical, so I don't really care which side goes up. And by the way, it doesn't matter how far in these T-pins go, or if they even miss the spar and go right into the drywall, because yeah, the T-pins get pulled out. I'm sure most of you knew that. They're gonna weigh down the plane a lot if they don't get taken out. Just lighting the wood stove. I'm hoping that you don't set the smoke alarms off until after I finish this video. Only 2 more of these to go. These two again are things that really have to be precise, because the bell crank platform has to go in between them. Sig calls it the plywood floor. I don't really care what you call it, but it's gonna fit snugly between these two ribs and rest on the bottom spar. You just don't want it moving. And I think you could all imagine what would happen if it was only attached to the bottom spar and not either of the two ribs. Eventually it would wear away. Belt crank go ripping through all your ribs. I had that happen once in an older style plane and ended up swirling to the ground because ruined the elevator assembly, which includes the rudder and stabilizer. Ripped through all the ribs. I fixed it. I'll show that to you guys in a second. But luckily it was the Mongoose 2. And instead of ripping the ribs limb from limb, it looks most of them just broke out. Actually, no, the other side. The crash made them break free from the glue. But this is the one. I still have to make it. I sanded most of it down. I still have to make up a stabilizer and elevator and rudder for it. But I still have like 3 kits of these, so that shouldn't be too difficult. I fabricated this rib and these 2. This one is the only rib that was salvaged. All the front halves of the ribs are good. The spar just broke. Everything else broke on a seam. The back half of the fuse even broke off. But since I have finished the work on this plane for today, I'm gonna let this glue dry overnight, and I'm gonna come back to it tomorrow. So just remember when you're building it that you want everything to be right. Covering, paint, monocoat, silk spin. It's not gonna cover up mistakes. It just won't do it. So I'll let y'all get back to your lives. Have a good day.